So I've actually been playing Genshin Impact since it came out. What is Genshin Impact? Genshin Impact ended up doing something that very few companies have dared to attempt. Copy Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, Genshin Impact does have its own world, its own characters and story, but honestly, almost every single aspect of the gameplay was something that they took from Zelda. A lot of Genshin fans seem to get very frustrated at this statement, but I consider it a compliment because Zelda Breath of the Wild was pretty much the only next-gen open world game, and so to be able to emulate that so well is admirable. And when I first started playing Genshin Impact, I was enthralled, dude. A free-to-play Zelda Breath of the Wild knockoff? Hell yeah! From exploring the beautiful map, listening to the incredible soundtrack, or fighting as cool anime characters. But one thing that I didn't know going into it was the gacha game experience. I've never played a gacha game before, and I didn't realize that gacha basically means that you spend money to gamble at a chance of getting the character that you want. But there's a lot of other microtransactions which will help you increase your power, with the worst system of all being the energy system, or the resin system. The resin system quite literally will stop you from grinding dungeons to get better gear, or grinding materials so that you can level up characters. Almost everything in the game is tied to this limitation. So while exploring the massive open world is a ton of fun, once you've collected most of the loot, there's not much reason to revisit an area. And the gameplay eventually devolves into repeating the same combat dungeons over and over every day until you're out of energy and not allowed to play anymore. This isn't necessarily a problem when you first start out with the game because there's plenty of content and plenty of things to do. But you gotta consider that all of these limitations are specifically designed in such a way to slowly convince the player that spending money is the best option. I'm not going to get into it, but there is a lot around the psychology of how this game is very specifically designed to get the player to spend money as soon as possible. Now, with all of that said, I know I'm going to enjoy Genshin Impact in the years to come, but I've learned a very harsh lesson of just how dangerous gacha games can be. Now, on one hand, you could argue that the money doesn't necessarily equal more fun or more gameplay, but at the same time, once you start getting to the end of the game, it starts becoming very apparent how difficult it is to sustain power unless you are willing to drop down some cash. But with all of that aside, the most important thing for me when I'm playing video games is whether or not it ends up creating some sort of a fond memory. Either the plot's really good, the characters are memorable, or it's just fun to screw around with friends. See, one of my favorite things to do in this game, as you can tell by the clips, is ragdolling the enemies. Me and my friends have dedicated hours and hours upon just running the same area over and over, killing all of the enemies along the way, and getting funny haha ragdoll clips. Now, the irony of it all is that I would say the one detrimental problem with Genshin Impact is that it is so successful. And what I mean by that is that this game is so successful that they don't really need to work very hard to produce results. And so over the years, it can honestly feel like the developers are kind of bullying their player base rather than delivering on crucial quality of life problems that we've been dealing with since the start of the game. But that said, if you give the game a chance, there's definitely some fun to be had here. You gotta consider that all of these complaints are coming from someone who's clocked in like thousands of hours to this game, because at the early game, you're either going to absolutely fall in love with it or hate it right away. For me, Zelda Breath of the Wild is one of my favorite games of all time, so it's no doubt that I would end up enjoying a game like Genshin Impact. Now, as far as Zelda is concerned, personally, I would give that game a 5 out of 5. Genshin Impact, however, takes a lot of mechanics from Zelda, and so I can only really give it a score of a 4 out of 5. It definitely has its problems, but I was playing this game for about a year straight before I started to really notice and be bothered by those problems. So here's to all the memories and the fun times to be had in the future.
I see you running in the cutscene. Attack the plants. Yes, it's beautiful.